Hello everyone, we're back at VivaTech, the startup event designed to bring corporates and startups together to drive innovation. And France has made real progress. Through initiatives such as Je choisis la French Tech, more than 2 billion worth of contracts have now been signed between startups and public and private organizations. At the same time, around 65% of startups now count large companies among their clients. The relationship between startups and corporates is finally maturing, yet the reality remains uneven. Some corporations have made startups a core part of their innovation strategy, while other companies struggle to move beyond pilots and experimentation. And now AI is raising those stakes even further. The ability to work effectively with startups is going to become more important than ever. So the question we're exploring today is simple. Are French corporates truly ready to start working with startups? And what needs to change to make those partnerships successful? I'm joined here today by these amazing panelists who I'm going to ask to introduce themselves. So Thor, let's start with you.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you for having us. And my name is Thor Philogen. I'm the founder and CEO, co-founder of a company called Stravito. And what we do is we're an insights intelligence platform. So we help very large companies, big groups like Danone, and effectively both in Europe and North America to answer the old age question, which is how can we improve our commercial results by utilizing the information and the knowledge we actually have about the market?
So I'm Rachel Delacour. I'm the CEO and the co-founder of Sweep at Sweep. And at Sweep, we are SaaS vendors. Okay, we are software companies. And we are helping large corporations to turn their sustainability data into measurable business value. We are leading in Europe. We are working with the like of L'Oreal, Orange, and very, very large companies that's even in defense that I can't name today. And we've been expanding a lot in Europe and also in the US more recently.
Thank you. So that was our startup team. And on this side, we have David.
Yeah, hello. Thank you for having me. So I'm David Sabban. I'm a partner at IDM Consulting, the consulting branch of IDM. And I'm leading a hybrid cloud data and AI service line. So basically, I'm focusing on operating transformation for large scale companies, leveraging different kind of technology and doing like AI activation at scale.
Hi, so Philip Marais, the Global Startup Program Director for OVHcloud. So OVH is a leading European cloud provider offering data sovereign cloud solutions to 1.6 million customers, served by 46 global water-cooled data centers.
Okay, thank you very much and welcome. So to get the ball rolling, perhaps a first question to you, David. Why should corporates partner with startups anyway? Why does it matter?
So you mentioned innovation in your introduction. I would also add the word transformation. So in the two areas, I think that the cooperation between large corporation and startup is really interesting. If you look at transformation first, usually the large corporation have all the core business in place, like the data, the clients, the platform, and so on. And a startup can bring a bit more agility, can explore new field, and the two together is really great for transformation. If you look at innovation at IBM, we work a lot on quantum, and on quantum, definitely we need to work with an ecosystem to move forward, both to identify new business and technology features. That's why we work with Qiskit function with a set of startups investigating those kind of function, and also identifying like really new field. We need to cooperate. We need to do a very strong partnership, like what we do with Pascal, to make sure that we create the ecosystem of quantum.
So we can see here that for you, tight relationships with startups are very important. But I think on the startup side, those relationships are not always that evident. Rachel, as founder of Sweep, in your experience, what are the biggest misgivings startups can have about when thinking about working with corporates?
Working with corporates is absolutely, it's important when it's your ICP, okay? It's not about just working for a large corporate, just to work for a large corporate. It's about, for example, at Sweep, we wanted to work with the biggest agent of change, okay, on climate change. So for us, we had to absolutely answer those large corporates' needs so that we are able to have a successful footprint, you know, to in terms of decarbonization with those large accounts. So we had to prepare everything, but what can be at some point challenging is that what I have seen is, the large accounts who have the bias, mostly in France, who absolutely want to, okay, I sign a contract with you only if I can invest in your company. Come on, you know, if all my, so am I fundraising each time I'm signing a contract? Come on, guys, you know. So this is the kind of things that can be very, that can defocus an entrepreneur and a funding team, you know. There is also the problem of, at some point, you know, it's because as a large account we are working with you as a startup that you should lower down your price, okay? And I have much more example like this, but I won't, I won't monopolize, you know, the discussion today. But I have some other, But basically, it's about first making sure that it's your ICP. This is the ICP you want to address. Ideal customer profile, and then yes, there is some pitfalls that I can be called for.
Very clear. David, from the corporate side, what makes large organizations hesitate when it comes to working with startups?
Yeah, that's a good point. I think that there is multiple things that corporation can feel when it's about working with a startup. First, probably cannibalization. Maybe they can believe that the startup will go on their field and probably like disintermediate their business, and it can create a kind of a fear that needs to be addressed. The second point is corporations usually operate in a regulated context with a lot of complexity, a lot of constraint in terms of security and so on. And maybe they can believe that startups will not have the same approaches. And the third point is maybe around the cultural fit, that there's something to do about it. There is something to work on it to make sure that we have the right operating model to work together with the big and the small in a productive way.
But despite those misgivings perhaps on both sides, one thing that is becoming very clear today is that AI is changing the equation and making it necessary for corporates to work with startups. This question is for you, Philip. Through OVHcloud's startup program, you're seeing hundreds of young companies building AI solutions. Has AI made corporations more willing to work with startups?
I believe there is a window at the moment which is open, which is making it easier for startups to work with corporates. You know, the playing field has been leveled, so to speak, because AI is, startups are still much faster, right? And innovation is happening so quickly that the corporates need to keep up. So there, in a way, there's a bit of a need to work more with startups. In terms of the risks around working with a startup, some of that has been de-risked at the moment because AI is actually helping for startups to be actually more compliant, to actually show that they are able to, you know, meet requirements because they don't need such a big team in order to implement things. And then on the budget side, because of the speed and because companies are wanting to implement quickly, you're seeing a bit of a shift from a procurement budget to things like innovation and R&D budgets being used. And we see that at OVH at the moment where, you know, part of our AI strategy is acquiring startups, recent announcements like that as well. And, you know, there could be legislation like the EU AI Act could be what could come in as a blocker from the corporate side, I guess, in the future, where they say, well, you know, have you met all these requirements? But at the moment, as I said, the playing fields are much more level.
Thor, Stravito works with major international organizations. Are large companies becoming faster at adopting external innovation because of AI pressure?
That's a great question. I would say that we work with, you know, hundreds of large corporates across both sides of the pond, both in Europe, in France, and then in the United States and Canada. And what we're seeing is there's a difference. There's a difference between kind of the aptitude and desire to actually be innovative and to take risk, I would say. I think it's kind of the key word here. And so I do believe that there's definitely a reality of AI increasing people's understanding that risks needs to be taken. But I think that fundamentally the core issue is people need to, I would say there's more and more risk in not doing anything than there used to be. And I think that's the core thing that I think actually a lot of French companies have understood. We have the privilege of working with many of them. But that's not something that I think has been democratized, for lack of a better word.
And so just maybe the same question then really to Rachel and David. Do you guys think too that AI has become the burning platform that finally forces corporations to move faster?
Yeah, hopefully they will learn to fail fast because of the path of AI and what they have to test, you know, the proof of concept they have to make with some startups. Hopefully it will force them to fail fast because, for example, I was talking about this talk that we have right now to a large accounts that I was speaking with, a French large CAC 40 company, and we were talking about this, and we were talking about another startups that they've been working with, saying, oh yeah, it's been a year. Talking about risk, it's been a year that we've been working on the proof of concept with them, and after 12 months now they are actually shutting their business down, etc. Yeah, but what about the egg and the chicken? Because if you are learning how to fail fast, the startup is not trying to spend all their energy, you know, for the large accounts who are very demanding, you know, very customized, etc. Of course, you are learning a lot as a startup because you need to cope with cybersecurity requirements, etc. You are learning a lot, but the time and the current processes of our French large accounts to fail fast with a startup is not the right things we need as a startup. It's preferable to fail fast with a large accounts than being into that very long, you know, that is actually burning all your energy, resources, and where you are not growing, you know. So this is also something, and hopefully the path of AI will help those large accounts to go even faster. But yeah, and this is exactly what the US companies have learned to do, failing fast with startups. This is helpful, and this is also why they are able to risk, because they know how to fail fast. They are able to pay more also to de-risk all this very quickly. And all this is actually much more success stories for startups in the end, and for the large accounts for sure.
David, what have you got to reply to that? Do you think that big corporates should learn how to fail fast?
Yes, but you mentioned AI, it is a burning platform. As a consulting firm, more than in a lot of fields, if we don't embrace AI at scale in everything we do on a daily basis, we are highly at risk. So it is a burning platform, and we need to move very fast. What we did at IBM Consulting is really quickly deployed a platform to change the way we work, the way we deliver with our client. For our 160 consultants, we have this platform where we can build agents, and we have built around 3,000 agents. So we are embracing this at scale. The thing is that there is two things. Productivity. Everyone needs to generate productivity, but generate it fast. It's not a question of perfection, and we will privilege speed of execution rather than pursuit of perfection. So that in that space, we need to fail fast. We need to invent, experiment, iterate, and find the way to improve our ways of working. And the second field is around by 2030. We will see new way of revenue, new source of revenue that we don't even think exists today. And we did a study where half of the executive we interviewed say that in 3 years from now, they will have new source of revenue coming from AI that they don't know really what it is now. So we need to go fast, we need to experiment, we need to fail fast, but embrace this term.
Yeah, with startups.
Yes.
With startups.
Oh.
Okay, so now perhaps we've got those difficult points out of the way. Let's perhaps talk about what makes a corporate-startup relationship successful. Thor, can you share an example of a successful startup corporate relationship and what made it work?
I think a couple of things. I think the big divide and the common currency is trust. Because to David's points before, what startups need to do is establish that trust so they can build the relationship. And I think what we've been able to do and see that when we've established relationships, like among our earliest clients, we take customers across both sides of the pond really, we're able to work with them and kind of innovate with them because that trust exists. I'll give you a very concrete example of how we think about trust. We've realized that with a lot of generic AI solutions, what you get is speed. You ask a question, you get a quick reply. But the problem is that if you're a business, you're actually not weighing your decisions on how fast you got the answer, is how reliable is it, how trustworthy is it. That's actually more important when you have $1 million decisions ahead of you. So what we've developed is what we call glass box AI, which actually is the idea of giving you an answer, but also expliciting how the answer was given. And also what data points we use, even going down to the spreadsheet cell, if we actually pull data from the spreadsheet. That's how we can actually generate trust and actually do something that we as startups can do to speak on the same level as the companies, the bigger corporates that we believe we can work with.
Okay, and maybe to stay more on the positive side of things, Rachel, what for you have been the positive things that have come out from working with big corporations?
Yeah, it's forcing you at some point to structure your company in a particular way. You also need to confront yourself with some seniority in who you are recruiting, who you are hiring for. You need to organize, for example, a customer success management in a particular way, etc. So my point is that it's from a technological standpoint. Of course, you have to hire at another kind of level, your cybersecurity guys, etc. To make sure that you need also your bid manager. You need a bid manager to answer all those RFPs, etc., etc. My point is that it's really helping you to, if large accounts are really your ICP, from early on, it's really helping you to structure the way you are operating, and basically, because it's easier to work with US same size, but US large corporations. You are so well organized at some point, because of your French, constraints, that it looks professional for sure when you are exporting yourself.
Okay, so David, Rachel's just told us about how she feels that working with big corporates has helped her to scale as a company. In your opinion, what separates companies that successfully integrate startup innovation from those that endlessly run pilots without scaling?
I'd say it's about taking the best of both worlds. We mentioned the difference between what corporate big company brings, what startup brings. I think the startup can bring the best of breed in terms of very technological approach and or business approach, very specific to something that is very specific. And the big corporations should, I think, avoid doing everything by themselves and try to really accommodate where we need to bring the startups, where we need to bring the scale approach. And usually what we see is that there is three problems that just deploying a startup technology is not addressing. There is the different type of debt in the enterprise. There is the process debt, the data debt, and the technology debt. And so it requires, to scale, it requires a larger transformation. You need to transform the system, you need to transform, to re-engineer the process. You need to make sure that the data is accessible and can be exploited by the technology. But if you don't address that, the scale is often difficult. So my view is that we should work in the best of both worlds. And there is something that also we need to consider is the governance, because if a large corporation is multiplying many kind of systems or technology system, AI system from many startups, the key thing is to have the right governance to make sure that they have the view on everything that is done.
So maybe to wrap up this discussion, there's going to be one quick question for all of you. If you could change one thing tomorrow to make large corporations work more successfully with startups, what would that be? And Philip, I'm going to start with you.
Yeah, I think leading on from the fail fast discussion, to be able to fast track these kind of startup corporate engagements, to make it a priority to not allow kind of dragged out decision-making processes. As I understand it, that decision-making process rather than the actual implementation that's the problem. It's not a procurement issue, it's a system issue. Make sure that, the go, no-go happens quickly, and things can get moving quickly, that there's a clear structure in place and a clear scope and these kinds of things that are essential.
David.
I would say the pace. I think that big corporation needs to understand the startup pace. The startup needs to, at the end of the month, pay its employees. So they cannot spend hours and days and months into fulfilling all the constraints of the big group, both in terms of procurement, security, and so on. So we need to find the way to ensure that we have this constraint managed, but go fast with the startup.
Same question to you.
Yeah, it's really about time to value, but we all heard about sovereignty, during this VivaTech in particular. Sovereignty has a price, okay? And if you want to work with a sovereign, on your sovereignty as a large company, if you want to work with French startups, yeah, you have also to accept to pay the price for that, so that the startup is also in a position of success to fail fast. To pay the bill and not being killed after 12 months of being exhausted, So all this has to be completely rethink at the light, for me, at the light of this new world, which is sovereignty. Sovereignty doesn't mean autarky, okay? But it has to be rethink, and this is what was VivaTech actually about this year.
Okay, great.
I would go back to the idea of risk and say be very clear about what risk you're not willing to take, but also actually realize that not doing something and not moving fast is also an immense risk. Yep. So really kind of put that in your mind, and when you weigh the different risks, not try and cover all of them, but focus on the ones you really need to have your bases covered for, so you can innovate and you can actually move faster. And because there's massive risk there as well.
Maybe to wrap up the debates, let's look forward to the future. In 5 years' time, do you think the most innovative corporations will be the ones building everything themselves in-house, or the ones best partnering with startups?
I'm happy to start, but I think that at the end of the day, doing everything will never be a successful model. I doubt that it's never been true in history. I think you definitely need to have some elements in-house, but I do think that you really want to get to a point where you own a couple of core things that will be part of your business forever, but you allow yourself to work with startups to gain pace, innovation, and actually drive that commercial success over a long time.
Yeah, whether it comes to new geos or new technologies, new products, either you are talking about collaborations, interoperability between systems. Of course, the large accounts have to work with many other startups for just to make sure that they are testing new things as well. Failing fast again, we are back to this topic. But of course, it has never been proven to be the right model to want to do everything by yourself. Think about quantum technology happening. It's kind of your core, business. But at some point, of course, you need to have a look to Pascal, to Alice and Bob, etc., from the French market.
David, what do you think?
Of course, partnership, and I will call out Jean de La Fontaine, the lion and the mouse. You all know that the lion had the mouse, and at the end, the mouse is chewing the mesh from the lion to free the lion up. The mesh can be like the rigid process that the corporates have, so the mouse can help, the startup can help, and the lion have all the data, the process, the scale, the security, and so on. So I think it's a good partnership.
And the big teeth. The lion has the big teeth. And Philip, what do you think?
Yeah, so sitting on the fence a bit, it's a bit of both. I think there'll be, corporates will be doing some stuff in-house and they'll be working with startups as well. I think the one thing that hasn't been mentioned is co-creation, right? So it doesn't have to be, fully implementing. It can be working together sometimes, which will overcome some of those risks, some of those barriers as well. So I think it's going to be a mix.
Great. So between all of the information we've managed to gather today, I think that corporates and startups actually have quite a bit of a playbook now to begin working successfully together. Thank you very much to all of you for joining us today, and take care. Bye-bye.